Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Beyond the Surface, Smarter Topology Modeling for Revit Projects. This session is brought to you by Graitec. My name is Clemens and I'm pleased to be your moderator today. So you can find the schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and training on our calendar at aec.com/calendar. So make sure to check that. And before we get started, we would love to learn how we can best support you and your business. So if you could take a moment to answer the poll question on the right side of your screen, that will help us so much to understand how we can best serve you. We'd also like to invite you to explore our free trial, customers training and services. So you can find the QR code on the screen that you can scan for more information. And as a quick reminder, feel free to drop your question into the live chat throughout this session. We'll make sure to address them during Q&A at the end of today's presentation. So today we are very excited to welcome Emily Moderman as future speaker. So Emily is an experienced BIM specialist with nearly a decade in commercial architecture before moving into consulting and training. She is skilled in Revit, AutoCAD, CAD, sustainable design and project coordination, and has supported many firms in their transition to BIM workflows. Her experience spans from working with architects and landscape designers to collaborating with curtain wall manufacturers, helping them bring their entire shop drawing processes into Revit. She's also exploring the Autodesk Construction Cloud to refine workflows and enhance collaboration across project teams. So we're really thrilled to have her to share her expertise on smarter topography modeling in Revit. Emily, thank you so much for being here. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. All right. Welcome to today's webinar, everyone. We are going to be talking about landscape architecture and how we can work better with the tools, the environment for Revit tools specifically, and just some general workflows, recommendations, etc. Please pop your questions into the chat, and if I see them or Clement sees them, we can read them out, and we'll get to anything else at the end of the session. So, and yes, there's some polls on the right-hand side of your screen in the webinar screen. So please fill those out and we'll get some good information on everyone so that we can help you in the best way possible. Right, so you're probably seeing already my screen. What I wanted to do today is just take you through sort of the beginnings of a project, and also just show you sort of a project in progress, talk about a little bit of the tools, how I accomplish some of these elements, and just work through some general how-tos. So I wanted to start today. This is sort of, I'm going to say not the end result, but the middle result of something that I am sort of working on. It's a community park here, and the task, let's say, at hand is to add an additional entrance pathway. There's already one at one side of the park, but they're looking for something at the other end of the park. And, it's quite sloped here, so we had to come up with the pathway for that. We're trying to propose a bit of a community garden here on the slope down. And they've asked us to add a wildflower area. And so we're just going to go through some of that process and take a look at what tools we have in our fantastic environment tool set. So we'll get started. Now, of course, I'm not starting right at the beginning because that would be a longer webinar than we have time for today. So I've jumped into as early as I can. We are starting here with an existing topography in its most basic form. It's based on, if I zoom in here, spot elevations that we have in the CAD file that, of course, are blanked out in this view. let's go to our existing site. There we go. So using that information, we can also use contour lines and in combination with our topography tools here, we have built what you see here as an existing site. Now, when I work with a lot of firms, they will say, I'll ask about, existing site work and phasing, and they will say, look, we don't really deal with the existing site. Civil hands us something and we propose something back to the client, and we work with civil closely, etc. And so we don't really use phasing. Great, I understand. But phasing in its most straightforward form can help you with a lot of your drawings. And in general, if you receive data from an outside source and you just promptly jump in and it becomes your proposed surface, topo solid now in 2024 and 2025. If you decide after doing some work that you would like to go back to the beginning and start over, if you do not have a phased, existing phase version of that topo that you have jumped in and modified, you are going to be stuck remaking it. So at its very basic level, I'm going to show you how to set up an existing and a proposed phase, or new construction phase as it's out of the box called. So in this particular landscape architecture project template, it starts us with an existing floor plan and of course a 3D existing view here. And for some reason, my little keyboard shortcut to call attention to my mouse has disappeared. I'm not sure why. So we have this view in our project settings, or in our view settings, is set up to new construction, and we're going to want to flip that back to existing. That's fine. Nothing disappeared because that's where it should have been. And if you select your new but existing topography, it has a phase created of existing. So before we move forwards, the first thing we are going to want to do is duplicate this view, and we're going to rename it proposed site, and we can set up our phasing. So we're going to say phase new construction, and in this case, until I'm done, I'm going to say show all. So I want to be able to see my existing phase information because there is this terrific little tool that out of the box Revit has that allows us to take our existing phase of topography and any other object that we want and turn it into a new phase. So that is actually not in the environment tools, it is in massing and site, and it is called graded region. A lot of people don't know what this tool does, so graded region can seem a little confusing, but if you have yourself set up with an existing surface and an existing view and a proposed view or a new construction view, I've misspelled proposed, that's terrific, and your phase is set to show all, we will now have, or your phase is set to new construction, but your phase filter is set to show all. We can use this graded region tool. And what it does is it says, hey, how do you want your new or your proposed topography to look? Are you going to be basically leveling the whole site before you start proposing new information? Not common, or at least in my experience so far, people start from what's existing. But you can wipe it all out and start only on a perimeter level and a flat site. However, more commonly, I would like to create a new topography exactly like the existing one because I'm really just going to be modifying small portions of it. So if you select this top option, the next thing we do is grab the site we would like to make a copy of. All of a sudden, we get all of these dots. These are actually your elevation points and your perimeter green dots. And at this point, you're done. You've successfully used that tool. Hit escape a couple of times, and you can set your phase filter for your proposed site to show current phase. Your existing hasn't gone anywhere, so I flip back to my existing site, but it now has a phase demolished of new construction. So that's what happens when you demolish something, or when you are going to start editing something in a proposed or new construction phase. We have the phase that it started in, which is existing, and we have the phase demolished, so that any work that I do on the new proposed site can be compared against what was already there in the existing, and we can get some cut fill information. So your existing site should be demolished. It should have a phase demolished value, and that's automatically set by that tool. And our new site has been created in new construction and does not have a phase demolished. So that's our first setup. And of course, we can do that with our 3D view as well. We want to be able to look at this in 3D view and 2D. Now, if we've got other information in our existing phase, so I've got some pathways and existing items, we can always, we don't want them to have a phase demolished. They are existing always. And so in my proposed site, if I don't see those, that has to do with our phase filter. So my phase filter right now said show current phase. And now I'm going to set it to show previous and new. So I'm showing anything that's existing in the previous phase and not being demolished. So now I can bring those forwards in both of these views. So your phase filters are really important, and it's how you set up a view to show exactly what you need to see phase-wise. So I better set that. So I say 3D proposed, and there we go. All right. Now, so I've got the major elements. Now, if I looked at that CAD file here, and I'm just going to HH my topo because it's hiding elements in my CAD file, you can see that there's a lot of trees going on here, and I need to make those in 3D. If I'm going to do this and I'm going to be working on this park, I may have to remove some trees. I'll have to put my tree protection fences, etc. So CAD file, Revit file, 2D, 3D, how do we get that information into our 3D file without a lot of manual work? All right, let's check it out. So this is where the environment tool comes in. This is one of the more popular tools. You've probably seen a demo of it if you've watched a lot of these videos. So I'm going to go to Get Blocks on the Environment tab. I'm going to select the CAD file. Now, this is not a warning you will always get. That's okay. I'm just going to continue, even though it can't find the reference file. That's okay. So what that tool does, it'll read through the CAD file, and it's actually going to assemble a list of the blocks inside it. Now, this is a pretty simple CAD file. I have 2 trees. I keep trying to highlight them with my little mouse blinker, but that seems to be gone. So I've got 2 trees. I've got deciduous and coniferous, and I'd like to map them both to an individual Revit family. I'm going to do that one at a time. I'm going to grab my deciduous tree in this list, and I'm going to go and map it to, let's say, a 12-meter deciduous family. It highlights all of those families here, or all the blocks. I'm going to leave everything at default, but I've got placement levels, so I'm going to leave it at sea level because I'm going to show you another environment tool to pick those up from sea level later. And we can do things like locate by block center, right? So we get the same center of the block location and the family. Use Z value. So if you do get a CAD file with a 3D elevation, your blocks are up at an elevation. That's super, first of all. And so you can use that Z value. Minus flat, nothing to use there. So I'm just going to click OK now that I've mapped my CAD to my Revit. All right, look at that. In the blink of an eye, I have a lot of trees in Revit format. And so I'm going to repeat that process with my coniferous trees. Okay. We'll show list, pick my coniferous, scroll up. You can see this is not only for trees. Obviously, that is one of the more popular, but if I had bench pads, if I had site furniture or anything else that I needed to sort of one-to-one replace, any family I think it's in the site category, works. So let me grab my, let's say a 10 meter coniferous, and I'm just going to click OK, and poof. So I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty terrific. This will work for street lamps, bench pads, all kinds of fun stuff. Now, my site's up here at its real sea level elevation. You know, this is 500-ish or 300-ish above sea level. And my trees are down at sea level. What do? Well, first of all, I'm going to filter that out because I seem to have some line work in there. So I'm going to filter that out so that I only have my planting families. And I'm going to go to the Environment tab. And I'd like to align these to a surface. That surface being my topo. So I have this terrific little tool, Align to Surface. I'm going to pick those up. And I'm going to say, find my host. You'll notice this in a lot of your environment tools. Basically, the object you're selecting is going to look up or below it, and it's going to find a surface to host itself to. So I don't have to select my topo surface. I'm just going to say find my host with a 0 offset. I want everything to be flush with the surface, and I'm going to click OK. And everything is now at an appropriate height. Now, last thing, if I come to our plan view and I zoom in on some of these trees, you can tell that they're not necessarily in the right size. They're in the right location, but not the right size. So these two trees are smaller than what the CAD shows because I mapped them to a specific 12 meter deciduous. Now, I've been working on this example for a while, so clearly I have and am aware of the other sizes required. So it's easy for me now to say, I think this is maybe a 15 meter. And those families are going to get bigger. And, you know, this one is probably 22 meters. So I can go around now and still relatively quickly make some adjustments. So this is a really small coniferous, right, and brand new. So when you first start setting up and matching and mapping these items, obviously you won't know ahead of time exactly how big all of the trees in this received information is going to be. So there is still some work that we'll have to do to figure out exactly what sizes they are. Sometimes you'll have some annotation in a schedule, you know, tree 7, tree 8 will have the information you're going to need. And then it's just a matter of duplicating your Revit family to give it an appropriate height or radius. So I'm not going to go through and fix all of these trees, but once you have a reasonable library of tree sizes, especially in any given template, it's really easy to go through and sort of add any missing ones and solve for the size differences around a scenario like this. All right, so next, I've been asked to, let's say, add a proposed path or propose a path from our entrance down to the existing path. The problem, I can't just cut straight down, is that it's a pretty steep slope. Now, when it comes to understanding your site, right? Sure, seeing it in 3D is nice. And I can obviously look at information in a site and say, boy, I think that's a pretty big slope. I can also go into, let's say, my proposed area, and I can start placing some spot elevations to see, I've been asked to start about here where this 340 is. So great, that's my starting point, but I have to go all the way down to 360, and looks like somebody has sort of, maybe they planned this one, but if you were to check the slope on that, that is not an accessible slope. So we can use our spot elevations to sort of help us get an idea of what's going on here. But really, I have to do a lot of math. I have to figure out, okay, 340, 338, I've got to measure in between there and figure out what that average slope is. And what if there's, some sharper areas? So what kind of tools do I have that can help us out with that? We have an elevation analysis, and we have a slope analysis tool here. So I'm going to check out this slope analysis tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and duplicate my proposed view, and I'm going to use the analysis tool in that proposed view, or the duplicate. I'll rename it. So to use the tool, it's fairly straightforward. We're going to select slope analysis. I'm going to select the surface that I would like to analyze. And it brings up range settings. So what are the slopes that I'm concerned about? Now, I'm going to go with apply advanced range split, and it will basically take me from the lowest, so 0%, and it'll break it up automatically into some chunks between the lowest and the most steep slope of almost 242%. And it'll give me a color range here of a whole bunch of grays. Not ideal. So we can always modify the color range. So if I wanted to pick something, in the green or blue range, I can do so. And then, I'm going to start really light. And I can work my way down, selecting kind of that same color and getting darker as I go. So that's one thing that we will need to work through. And then the next one is, okay, I've got a lot of extreme ranges here. So how does this really help me? If I were to hit apply right now, and click OK, nothing happens. I always forget. In this particular template, there's a filter on, and it helps to hide that filter or this analysis in views that I don't need to see it. But clearly I want to see it in this view, and that's what I'm going to turn on. So I just went to VV and I turned on my filter. Now, why do I have that filter? A, because it's handy, and B, because this template is geared towards landscape architects. It's actually the template from the Arc Intelligence people, the fabulous Arc Intelligence people over there. And I will post a link to that in the chat right now. So if you'd like to check out that, if you guys are looking for ways to improve your template, this is a great way to get some ideas or to start with this and work forwards for your firm. So I unchecked the filter so that I can see my fantastic range of blues here. But what I find is with this information, it's not enough. It's not detailed enough. I have too big a range between, let's say rebuild range between 0 and 48. None of that really. I want to know what's already good. Show me 0 to 4%, right? That is, my accessibility range, not 4%, and make this one green. Show me what I can use as is. And then I might choose to break that down further. Maybe 0 to 2, maybe 2 to 4, and then maybe, let's say, 4 to 6. So I can sort of see what's almost good, and I don't have to do too much, work on it and so on. So it's a really handy idea to sort of start this way, break down your site, get a sense of where your major slopes are, because if we're just trying to design something new, I want to pick the best location already. I want to minimize my site interference, and this site analysis tool can help me do that. Now, I might just pop back to my finished result here. I did the same sort of thing on this one, but I took more time to do it. And you can see here that I've actually labeled them in red. Anything that is sort of in that close to usable zone, I wanted to see. And then, dark green, light green are usable. And so you can always check out what your slope analysis, schedule is by going back to the slope analysis tool, grabbing your site. And I don't know why it's not letting me pick it, but that's okay. It's still there. So I can go back to slope analysis and usually pick that site. Love live demos. So I was able to do that here. And so if I go back to slope analysis, I can select that anytime and just rebuild that range, and it'll bring me right back to what I was working on, and I can continue that work. All right. There's other settings. I could have rebuilt this in a more specific way, but one of those great tools. So now, knowing where those sort of usable but not quite perfect ranges are, I can decide a little better where my pathway should go, or I can realize that I don't have a lot of choice and I've kind of got to stick with, what I've got. So, loving the analysis tool. What else do we have? Oh, where's my proposed site? So I'm going to go top. Oh, and I'm going to rotate this around so it matches my construction plan. So I need to go from 340 down to about 336. Now, I know that everybody's got the tools you've been using for a long time, aka pen, pencil, calculations, probably an Excel file that helps you do this work really quickly, and you'll be able to find the best route down. Environment also has some tools that can help with that. So if I were to go to my proposed site, I know that I need to land at about 336. I'm starting at about 340, and I've already got a planned path here for today. So the tool that I'm about to show you is called the alignment tool. It's relatively new. There are some other good webinars about it by Arc Intelligence, and so you can check those out for some detailed information. But where it can help is making that final path structure. However, before you get to that final path, it's a good idea to have an idea, okay, 340 to 336, I still need to know roughly how long I need to make that. I'm obviously going to be hoping for an accessible slope here, so we're talking in and around 4% or less. And there's always some pre-work to be done. Environment, Revit doesn't entirely do your job for you. So calculations have already been done. I know that I need a specific length of path based on my distance over slope calculations. And I've got a pathway here that I've pre-built. Now, one of the things that's annoying in Revit that environment can help with is I've built this pathway, but it's a lot of smaller segments. How do I actually know what the length of it is? Well, there's a terrific little tool in environment that shows you that information. It's on your environment tab on the far right. While I have several lines selected, I can use the total length tool. I made a shortcut for it, TT, and it pops up this and it says, hey, you've got a total length of 120. And so you can compare that against your calculations and say, great, this is the length that I'm looking for. And this is sort of roughly the outline that I'm looking for. So once you have that, now we just have to build it in Revit. And that's where the environment tool alignment comes in. So we've got alignment and extract topography. Alignment is going to help us draw our path and figure out our reference surface, our profile, like a cross slope or anything like that, like a road slope profile. And then our extract is going to build us that surface. So let's see what we do. All right. We've got our alignment tool loading up. And I'm going to do my best to sort of trace. There are some fancy new updates coming to this tool. I can't say when, but I do have some background information. So there's all kinds of new updates coming to a lot of the tools in the next update of Arc Intelligence. So always something to look forward to. We're going to name our alignment. So I will say new entrance. I'm going to say OK. And I can set a radius. Now, just a tip about your radius, based on your pathway requirements. If your pathway is going to be 6 meters, then a radius of 6 meters is reasonable. My pathway is going to be about 3 meters. That's, I think, the minimum accessible width for a pathway. So I'm going to, in this case, match my radius to 3 meters. Now, I'm working with a pretty tight scenario here. But that's really the minimum of the radius that I can go for. All right. Now I'm going to start drawing. As of right now, we have a draw and an arc tool. Just wait. I think there's going to be some more tools coming in, and I'm going to start my pathway. So there are, it will automatically radius your line work. Sometimes we have to adjust for that though, right? I've got to make a point and it will radius it for me. So you can see there it's got my radius. Now I can adjust all this information as I go. We are going to get some points to help us with that. So I'm coming down all the way here to the end of my path, and I'm going to hit escape. Now, this one didn't work out so well, but that's okay. When I finish drawing, I'm going to hit escape once, and you can see I get control points that I can work with. So it looks like this one, I'm going to really have to crank it. I'm going to pull this one way out here and try and make it match my path. Right? Doesn't have to be perfect, but I need to maintain something similar to this because that's going to give me the length that I needed. All right, so I'm going to adjust this, and there we go. So roughly when I'm happy with this, I will hit escape again. And then we have drape or interpolate. So drape would mean I have an acceptable slope between these 2 points, and I want to use as much of the existing landscape as possible to form this pathway. Okay, this is great when somebody else is doing a lot of that civil work for you. You've maybe already proposed them that center line. They've said, great, I'm going to grade it so that it's going to work for you. You're going to drape, and it's going to use your existing elevations. Now, in my case, not going to work for us. So we want to recreate that landscape. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first point here. We're going to say 340. And then we're going to take this last point and we're going to say 336. And then escape one more time. Okay. Escape is your friend in this tool. It'll always bring you back to the next step. And we're going to interpolate. And now I'm going to check my 3D proposed. So my pathway here, starting where I need it, ending where I need it to, and whether you're in Plan or 3D, you can select each one of these segments and check out the slope that it's given you. So we're at 3.26, so that's going to be pretty consistent all the way down. So I'm within my accessibility requirements. So I think we're doing all right. So I'm going to hit escape twice more. I'm going to leave my edit tools and I'm going to go to the cross-section option. So cross-section. What is a cross-section? Well, what do you want your pathway to look like? We have two options. A profile type. So you could define exactly what you're looking for in if you need crowning for a road, if you need a specific profile for your pathway. So you can pre-build profiles and load them into your template project and work with them from there. In this case, I am not going to use a profile. I'm simply going to say I want a 3-meter wide pathway with a 2-meter cross slope, or 2% cross slope. And when I hit this little regenerate button, it's going to build me what they call a reference surface. So this is just something in the background that it represents my surface and provides that information about the cross slope or the profile. Now, that all went fairly smoothly, so I can hit escape a couple of times and finish that. And it gives me a little floating alignment point. To finish this off, I'm going to go extract topography. We're going to select that alignment point, and we're going to basically tell it what kind of path to build me. So I'm going to use TopoSolid 1. We can adjust what TopoSolid type it is, and it builds me the perfect path. Now, it's covered up by some of my topo surface. I know we're getting close to Q&A. So the last thing I'm going to do here is take a look at how we will modify. So this is the proposal part. So now that I've got my pathway in there, what can I do? I need to adjust the grading around that pathway because we can't obviously leave it like this. And this is where these terrific topo tools come back in. I'm going to go into the topo tools with my topography selected. It's going to always give you this message when you use it for the first time. And I'm going to click OK or close. Here is my entire surface and all of the points that are making it what it is right now. These points, if I go to my proposed site, my plan, are, you can see that they're at wherever my CAD file indicated. So this one is at 336.5, etc. So this is what's forming the shape now. But I need to make some adjustments to it. I need it to follow this pathway. I need it to kind of slope between the pathway elements. And so I am going to get rid of, I'm going to sort of wipe out some of these points that are close to the path so I don't get anything a little ridiculous once I align everything. And I'm going to use the Draw Selected Region tool. This is relatively new, and it allows me to sort of fence off a region of points that I would like to, in this case, remove. So I've finished my fence. I'm going to apply that, highlights all of those, and I'm going to use the delete key here. So what do I do next? Well, now I want to tell that surface how to work around this path. So I have pick face and from edge. I kind of use them interchangeably. I find from edge a little better, but I will use pick face for this. Make sure we get our top of the pathway. And this is actually going to pick all of the points along that. Specifically around the curve, it's nice and accurate. And I want my points to have a slight negative offset. So I want this surface to come up to just a couple of inches below the edges of this surface. I'm going to insert points. And just because I know what's going to happen here, I'm also going to use from edge, and I'm going to set the same offset, -0.02, And I'm going to pick these straight points just so I get a little more information along those straight points, because from edge doesn't always, or face doesn't always get me that. There we go. So I've added a few more points here. I'm going to insert those points as well. I'm going to finish this. It's going to think for a second. And I have a nice, clean slope working down. I'm going to go to shaded so that I can see that. I knew something was wrong there. And you can see that it has regraded all of the areas in between that pathway. Now, there's a few sharp edges here, and that is up for you and your landscape architecture skills or civil to handle the finer grading. What do you want to do in here? Are we going to remove some more points? Do we need to smooth this out? Well, there's all kinds of tools in there to do that. We have a few minutes. So we also have, I like this one. You would have to be very careful where you use it, but we've got some modified topography tools here that allow us to do some really neat stuff. Inflate. If you want to create a berm or some information, you can sort of inflate. You have mesh control where you can take a grid system on your whole site and you can use those grid points to create an entirely new elevation surface. Gradually, you can shape by point. You can drag individual points up and down. They're all well and good, but I'm going to use the smooth geometry one today. I might sneeze. Forgive me. Excuse me. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to smooth some of this geometry off, and we'll see what it does. First of all, I'm going to set my cell size to something a little smaller. Now, I hope this doesn't crash right as my exit strategy, but I'm going to set it to 1 meter of a cell size, because if I leave it huge, the smoothing that it's going to do is going to ruin everything that I've worked on. So I can set that cell size to something more reasonable, and let's see what we get. I can show preview. It's going to analyze this for a second. It's got a lot of modifications to do, so fingers crossed this doesn't take me too long. All right, so in this smoothing, it's going to smooth off some of those very sharp or unusual areas. So it's a great option if you have a lot of control over the site and you're going to be working to make it less jagged. What else do we have? All right, so while that works, I don't know if there's any questions, but we have, let's see, what are some benefits of switching from doing this grading in Civil to doing within Revit? All right. Civil to Revit, I'm going to say, I'm not sure if that's the jump you want to make yet. However, if you are working in Civil and you are being asked to provide more information or coordinate with architects, engineers, landscape architects, and you want to be able to give them Revit information, Land XML, you can export Land XML information. Yes, I'm going to apply those. You can export Land XML information, and the environment tools can import that civil data. All right, so interesting result. So it's smoothed off my sharp edges here. I'm going to have to tweak a little bit to smooth off that workflow again, but I can go back and do this. Sorry, Ben, I'm not done answering your question. I can go back into my topography tools and just refresh some of those points so that I don't lose them. Oh, and I know what I did wrong here. Okay, there we go. So I've got a lot more points, and I just want to potentially add the from edge tools again. And maybe I should have done this in the opposite order, right? Order of operations sometimes helps. -2 insert points. So we have a lot of editing options here. We can always go back, add, subtract, adjust points, and just to finish this off, if you ever make a major error, This is what happened to me early on. I would make changes. I would get, into a design and I would say, man, this is not working. And I've, royally messed this up. I can always go back to that original existing surface. So we can bring that forwards if you ever need to restart. I might have crashed this now, but we'll see. I've been having some issues with my computer lately. All right. So we'll see if that works out, and I will continue to answer Ben's questions. So Civil 3D, I don't think is ready to be replaced by Revit yet. I'm not going to recommend that. But your Civil 3D ability to, there we go, that worked out, provide information that is usable in Revit. We can import civil data to Revit, and we can also give you back civil data. So if I make major changes to this topo surface, I can export this to LandXML. You can bring that into your civil file, and it will create a surface. And what's it called? I believe you can merge, let's say, your existing and let's say a landscape proposed. And then you have sort of that combination surface. So LandXML is sort of that gateway between the two systems. And of course, we will always be linking. We will always rely on a Civil 3D geolocation, although there are geolocation tools in Revit that are, with the aid of the environment for Revit tools, are getting better, and they're going to help us not only set up our shared coordinate location, but configure that shared coordinate with the geolocation of the site as well. How do you overcome exporting vertical walls to Civil 3D? Ooh. That's a good question. I'm not going to say I know the answer to that just yet. Mostly the export for Civil from Revit to Civil is dealing with our topo surfaces. So I'd actually have to run a couple of tests to see how that handles, let's say, vertical walls. So I might have to get back to you on that one, Daniel. And you have a second. LandXML can't recognize vertices on top of each other. So I want to say that's not the end of the world. Revit doesn't love vertices on top of each other either. So anything that we design in Revit is going to have a minor difference in between, let's say, something that is otherwise straight. There's other ways that we would have to handle that. A different surface, right? A separate surface object. So that is where there would be some adjustments that would have to be made. So Revit doesn't like a perfectly straight topo solid either. So yeah, most likely that's going to be a wall and a surface at the edge in both locations. But we'd have to work through, a custom, or not a custom, what that might look like and how you are expecting it to come into Civil, and we can run some tests. So some of these things I still have to try. I haven't been requested and I haven't worked through them entirely. But these are great questions because Civil and landscape, we are needing to pass that information back and forth a lot more frequently these days, and it depends on each office. Good, some Civil questions. All right, so Civil is something that we are going to be wanting to run, I think, a webinar on coming up. So maybe we can take a look at that shortly. Next webinar, I think we are going to have Nahama back with us. She is on maternity leave, so congratulations to her. And so I will talk to Arc Intelligence, and we'll see what other good Civil workflows and Civil questions maybe we can ask in upcoming webinars, blog posts, etc. Yes, I think that's maybe a Clements question, but I think there's going to be a follow-up email to this one, and I'm not sure. Clements, do they get information for upcoming webinars
For upcoming webinars, yeah, you
related to?
can check.
Okay.
You can check all of our upcoming webinars. We have a lot that are coming up. You can check on asci.com/calendar. You have all of the upcoming webinars, and you can just sign up for any webinars that is relevant to you. So, yeah, do you think we can move to the Q&A session, Emily?
We
The
sort of
exciting
were
part.
already.
Yeah.
But
So
yes, of course.
we actually have lots of questions. So we will start with Javier's question. So he said, hello, what is the best approach to model platform fields in order to achieve a similar result to building platform with topography in Revit 2023 and earlier? In previous version, the field was generated automatically. Now it's only the exact excavation.
Okay, so let me see. Similar results of building platforms with topography in 2023 and earlier. Okay, so when you're saying in previous versions the fill was generated automatically, so 2023 and previous, we don't have topo solid. We're dealing with topo surfaces, and so the fill that you were, if I'm thinking correctly, the fill that you were seeing is potentially, gosh, it's been so long since I looked at the topo surface. Fill, platforms, fill. I think I need some more details on that one, but the fill might have been, what do we call it? Just an automatic pattern of earth or whatever it was that came when you cut something in section. So in 2024 and beyond, when you cut a section in a topo solid, we have built the structure of a surface so that it has a specific material, different thicknesses. It acts more like a floor. And so if I'm reading this correctly, and we're talking about filled regions, then we're getting that from the structure of the floor, which did not exist in 2023 and previous. So Javier, if you've got some more follow-up information, maybe pop it into the chat. Sorry, I didn't see your question earlier. And we can answer that.
Okay, and so then we have a question from Ben. So Ben asked, what are some of the benefits of switching from doing this grading in Civil 3D versus doing it within Revit, assuming you are familiar with both?
And so, Ben, I think we already talked about this question a little bit. So, again, yeah, I'm not going to say that Civil is ready to be replaced by Revit. It does a lot of great work, but it is not a replacement for Civil 3D yet. It depends on the scale and the scope of your work, and if you're looking at something like this alignment tool, you know, I know that Civil works with alignments. We, however, still do not do utilities. Like there is a vast difference at this point between Civil and Revit. So no replacement, but when it comes to just talking about topography, this is definitely a great way to use the information, share the information. Now, Daniel has pointed out there are some drawbacks to that, or at least some open-ended questions that I can't answer for you at this point. I do not work in Civil a lot. I know enough about it to receive and send land XMLs, etc. So these are questions that I can, ask somebody on our civil side. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. We have some other questions. We have lots of questions today. That's awesome. So Daniel wrote, how do you overcome exporting vertical walls to civil 3D land XML? Land XML can't recognize vertices on top of each other. And yeah.
So that's one of those questions that I'm going to have to look into. I'm going to ask my civil guy, and Ken Driscoll on our side is our civil expert here at Graitec. He's giving a talk at AU. If anybody is going to Autodesk University, check him out, and maybe I'll get in touch with him and see if I can work through a scenario like that with him and get some answers. And so Daniel again, and Dan and David. So Daniel again, we have issues with aligning info from Revit clients in civil a lot. So the civil import and export aspects from CAD to CAD would be very interesting us. So this is going to come down to the coordinates, setting that geolocation, getting it right in your civil project, getting that, I always forget the name of it, so I can search for, let's just pick this guy. I don't need to be accurate here. I'm just going to pick a random location here. So in a site, when I choose my location, I can actually zoom right in and I can say, well, my site is exactly, I can drag this little house to say it's right here. Okay, and I can put that at the corner or generally at my site information. And then, there it is, I can choose the local coordinate system. That's what I was missing. So I can choose that local coordinate system, and when I can get that set up at the beginning of a civil file, we can get that information in Revit as well. So when those two elements are aligned in civil and then Revit, that shared coordinate starts to work a lot better. We're still working on training up the people on the building side who don't use these coordinate systems like civil and landscape do. So I'd say there's still a learning curve to happen. But if we can get you guys working with those set coordinates, getting those properly linked into Revit, then hopefully that's going to improve your ability to link other CAD files in that may also have those coordinates and geolocation set up. And even the ones that don't will be slightly easier. So there's hope. There's hope. We're just going to train the building architects. All right. Okay. Last question I can see is, David, we have, how do I show bedrock with a different shape under the topo surface or solid? Okay. A different shape. Bedrock with a different shape. So I'm not sure quite what you mean by different shape, but we could, and this is just off the top of my head, I don't know if we're thinking maybe two different, we made it all the way to 2 o'clock. Two different surface objects. And maybe we have to work with them separately to achieve what we're looking for. And I don't know if that's a great answer or not, or maybe something you've tried, but I would love to hear. You're looking at. All right. I think we are out of time, though, guys. This was great. Good questions. And I think we're going to have to get a civil webinar going, aren't we?
Yes, sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Emily, for sharing your insights with us. And thanks to all of our attendees for joining. We truly appreciate your time and hope this webinar. Oh, we have one more question from Javier. he shared more insights about what he was meaning. So he said, what I mean is imagine a platform that is half buried in the surface and half floating on an inclined terrain. With the excavate tool, the buried part is cut out to the topography, but the other half remains floating above it. How can I create the feel for that floating part?
Ah, I see. Okay, so, well, we'll answer this one because I did ask for more details. So I think that is going to be, you're going to go into these topography tools and you're going to choose, let's say, something like from edge. And in the same way I selected the edge of one of these surfaces, I'm able then to set a negative offset, negative or positive offset. So you've got this floating platform and now you've got your slope coming down here and there's nothing, right? It's just empty. We can then, what it will do is if I pick that edge of the top of the surface like I would here from edge, it will create points along that new edge, maybe around the sides. And then I would say maybe if you don't want it to come right up to the edge, you want it to sort of just fill that in. You could pick the underside. You could pick, if it's, depending on how high your wall is, you could pick any edge and adjust for that height offset. And then it's going to bring your topo solid up to those points, hopefully filling in that edge, right? So positive or negative offset to set that up. And no, thanks for coming back with that information. So that's going to be your from edge or your pick face with some sort of a height offset tool. At least that's what I would try first. It will keep any existing points and then increase and fill in any lost points. So hopefully that helps you out there. If you need to manually have those contours, you could draw specific line work at specific heights and use those to add to your topo. So you're in the topography tools for that answer. You've got a few options there. All right, we are 2 minutes over time, so thank you guys for hanging out with us for those extra 2 minutes. I've copied down some of those questions so that I can think about them some more and talk about them internally. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Clemence?
Thank you. Yes, thank you everybody for joining. Don't forget, you can always explore upcoming events and training opportunities on our calendar at istis.com/calendar. Make sure to check that. We look forward to seeing you on a future Graitec webinar and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.